Remember, it is your responsibility to expect this to be a great day. Today I'd like to talk about what I like to refer to as the three blind mice. And it's basically me having fun with three experiments done on mice that I think give some interesting insight into humanity, human drive, human motive. And it's interesting that we can use animals that are blind to humanity to help us out. So first experiment is they put mice into a cage with a metal bottom, and they ran an electric current through that cage, and the mice were shocked, and they would climb up the side of the cage and climb out. And then what they did temporarily was they put a top on that cage, and they ran the shock through the cage. The mice got shocked, they climbed up, could not get out, held on until they got tired, fell back to the bottom, got shocked, climbed back up, could not get out. And they went through this process a couple of times until they realized or learned that they could not get out. And then the mice just stayed on the bottom of the cage. They just took the shock. And even when they hooked mice up to electrode to see if they were somehow getting numb to the shock, they were not. They were just accepting the shock. It hurt. They could register the same amount of pain, but they just refused to do anything about it. They just stood there and accepted the shock. Even when people would remove the top of the cage, the mice would stay there and take the shock. When they'd reach in and take the mice and lift them out of the cage and put them back in the cage, lift them out back and forth so that the mice could see that there was no top on the cage, still the mice just stood there and took the shock. They had learned that that was the nature of the reality, and they didn't want to do anything about that. They stopped fighting against it. Experiment number one. Experiment number two is you put a man and a mouse in a maze, and they both can find their way through the maze to a prize and remember how to get there. Man's smart enough, so is a mouse, right? The difference though is when you move that prize, in the case with the mouse, the cheese, but if you, with a person, when you move the prize, the difference between a man and a mouse is pretty startling. The mouse will go to where the prize or the cheese was and immediately, without hesitation, realize it's not there and start searching through the maze, because his motive is to find out where the cheese is. A man, on the other side, would go to where the prize was, see it's not there, then go back, retrace his steps, and go back and do this multiple times and get frustrated because he knows that he's right about where the prize was. The final experiment, and this is kind of brutal, but hey, this is how I read about it. So scientists were curious as to how long mice, it was an endurance thing, physical endurance thing, and they wanted to know how long mice could survive swimming. How long could a mouse swim before it drowned, basically. So they put mice in a tank that had no way out of it, and they timed it. They watched the mice swim until they became exhausted and started to, sink to the bottom of the pool, started to go through the drowning process. And they timed it, and they got basically an average. Okay, but then they did something that was really interesting. Right before that period, of that drowning period, they reached in and they took some of those mice out. They basically saved some of those mice out, put them away. And here's the starting thing. When they let some time pass and they redid the experiment with those mice that they had saved, and they put them in the same conditions, they not only met the average, they exceeded the amount of time that mice could swim by a long shot. Now keep in mind that this was a matter of life and death, right? These mice were trying to swim for their lives, literally. But the ones that had been saved could swim a credible amount of additional time, not just a few minutes, but a very long time. I forgot the actual percentage, but it's a staggering longer time. And the interesting thing about this is that the idea that these mice that were saved, that had been in a situation before, had this thing that we call hope. Because the last time they were in this bad situation, something came along and pulled them out of it. They have hope that the same thing is going to happen again. And it gave them the actual physical, in the real world ability to do way beyond not only what their natural ability was, but the whole population's natural ability was. Wow, these are three powerful experiments, I think, when you think about it. When you look at the ability for people to learn that they are helpless of a painful situation and stop trying to do anything about it, eliminating their chance to do something about it. When you look at the example of our capacity to be right about something, regardless of the end result of us being right. And when you look at this incredible, empowering thing we call hope, those are three very powerful concepts that can affect humanity, human performance, the human condition. And I think they're quite adequately demonstrated in these stories about mice that are in fact blind to our human condition. Something to think about as you expect to have a great day.